Tū taua mai I runga, tū taua mai I raro, tū taua mai I roto, kia tau e te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, humi e, hui e, tai ki e. Hello and welcome to this, the webinar for the launch of Go Circular. I'm just waiting for, we've got people streaming in to come see us. I'll give it a little pause just while we've got a few there. We've got over 1,000 registrations, so thank you so much for that. It's great to have you all here with us. Today, we're going to be looking at the circular economy. It's an economy where waste and pollution are designed out, products are kept in use, natural systems are regenerated, and it's the natural successor to the predominant take, make, and waste linear economy that we're experiencing now, and the problems that we're also experiencing from that economy. My name is Andy Kenworthy. I am the Senior Communications Advisor at the Sustainable Business Network. I will be taking you through this around about 45 minutes to an hour with us this afternoon. We've got a really good practical session coming up just to give you the tools that we've been developing. This is the launch of SBN's Go Circular 2025 program, which is a new public-private partnership with our fantastic partners, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, Ministry for the Environment, Waste Management, and Āmiomio Aotearoa. We're going to hear how New Zealand is currently tracking on its journey towards the circular economy. You may recall we did an initial report a few years back, and we're looking again to see how we're tracking on some of those key areas of interest. We'll hear from James Griffin, who's leads our circular economy work on that very shortly. And in a moment, we'll be joined by the Honourable James Shaw, Minister of Climate Change and Associate Minister for the Environment, who's going to give us a little bit of a taste of how the government's considerable efforts are going on this and the support that they're offering in this area. Thank you very much, James, for coming to us. It's awesome. I'll just intro you in just a sec. We're also going to hear from 3 of the top businesses out there, because we know that you guys will really like to hear from other businesses and what they're doing and what they're capable of. So we've brought up some of the top players in New Zealand for you this morning. We've got Emma Lewisham from Emma Lewisham Skincare, Alan Sutcliffe from Solar Plastics, and Donald Shepherd from Citizen. We could just give us a quick rundown of their particular sectors and the efforts they're making, give you a taste of the practical steps you can take. So first up, I'll just introduce James Shaw, our minister, very busy boy. He won't be around for the panel later, but we will have a panel, and any questions for James that you have, feel free to pump into the Q&A along with the others for us later, and we'll direct those to him. James, thanks very much.
Well, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Andy, thank you very much for that introduction. Look, I'm delighted to see that there are currently almost 500 people on the seminar. I think that's a sign of how much interest there is and how much things are changing or on the verge of changing. It won't come as any great surprise to know that I kind of share the assessment of many of you that we're a long way away from a circular economy yet here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And my sense is that having said that, we are actually at the point now of getting started at the beginning of that journey. And New Zealand is a comparatively wealthy OECD country with a very high consumerist culture and a consumption-based economy. We are kind of one of the worst in the world, really, certainly on a per capita basis when it comes to the traditional model of take, make, and waste consumption. Having said all of that, my sense is that we are now getting to a point where, in government at least, we're getting to grips with what needs to happen in order to encourage a more circular economy over the course of the coming years. And I want to credit David Parker, who is the Minister for the Environment, but has specific responsibility for the waste portfolio, and Eugenie Sage, who in the previous term of our government was the Associate Minister for the Environment and had responsibility for the waste portfolio, because between the two of them over the course of the last 3 or 4 years, they have really started to build the foundations of a nationwide strategy to support moving towards a circular economy over time, recognizing that it is not going to be particularly easy or quick as we would like. So some of the elements of this are known. For example, that we're dramatically expanding the waste levy over the course of the coming years and stepping that up over time. That creates a significantly larger revenue stream, which gets recycled, to coin a phrase, into initiatives that increase the circularity of the economy and manage our waste a bit better. But also there are some kind of significant regulatory things in the pipeline as well, which include thinking about, well, actually, are there categories of plastics that we can't use because we're unable to recirculate them through the economy at the end of their first use, and so on. So I just wanted to really, in my comments, to kind of frame things up to say that things are starting to change. I don't think any of us have got any illusions that we're, kind of in mid-flight or anything like that, but to offer some hope and to some encouragement, particularly for those in the community sector who have been chipping away at this for a very long time, for those in the corporate sector who are looking at making some pretty significant investments, either if you're in the waste industry itself directly, or if you're in the goods and products where you're having to rethink your supply chains and your downstream waste recapture, reprocessing, reuse, and so on, that it is a very exciting time because we are moving heavily in this direction. The other thing that I just wanted to say is in relation to my portfolio as Minister for Climate Change, the recommendations that came through from the Climate Change Commission at the end of May had some quite strong language for us around making sure that we start moving towards a circular economy as well, and to help to bring down not just our production emissions, but our consumption emissions as well. And because the view that the government is taking is that the recommendations of the Commission should be taken at the very least very seriously, that there's a very high bar for declining any of those or rejecting any of those recommendations. That then is another kind of plank that we can build on as we start to move towards the foundations for a circular economy in Aotearoa, New Zealand. So I know not every aspect of this is out in public yet, but I have to say, knowing what I do know about what's going on in government, that things are about to start moving at our end, and I hope for those of you who have been battling away at this for a very long time, that you will see that government is finally starting to come to the party to make the investments that we need to make to put through some of the regulatory change that needs to happen to support this shift in the economy, and to start to draw links between the circular economy and other very important things like climate change as well, in ways that perhaps we haven't really done in the past few years. So I just want to say again, thank you for all of your work. Thank you for your interest in being here today. To Andy and James and everybody in the SBN team and the partner organisations behind this, thank you very much for pulling this together, and I wish you all the very best. And notice that as I've been speaking about, another 100 people have joined. So I'm delighted that at the level of interest that you've got. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much, James. Great to have you with us, and we'll play that kind of triple role as with yourselves. We're partners. We're kind of very thankful and grateful for all the efforts you're putting in, and we'll also chase you around barking at you to make you go faster. That's what we feel our job is. Thank you very much for your time this morning. That's awesome. Absolutely outstanding to see you all pumping comments into the chat and saying hello to each other. It's great to know who's here. It's like a party situation going on, which is awesome. It's nice to see the big kind of circular economy community growing up and getting really, really into it. Now we'll hear more of the detail from our own James Griffin, who leads our work on the circular economy for SBN. He's going to tell you all about the Go Circular and also about the report that we've just done. James, over to you.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Minister Shaw, for that great introduction and context setting. So, well, no surprises. We're absolutely delighted to announce this new public-private partnership to really provide Aotearoa New Zealand businesses with the resources that they need to go circular at scale. Now, I really need to thank, again, our partners for enabling us to be able to bring these resources to you. New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, Ministry for the Environment, Waste Management and Āmiomio Aotearoa. Thank you. Now, we will be talking about some of the key elements of the programme as we go through the webinar. But first up, we want to share some of the key findings from our report that we've had lots of contributions to. We've taken a look at the barometer of how New Zealand is performing on that transition to a circular economy, and that's what we're going to be sharing now. But before that, we'll just go into a bit of context. I mean, you've heard some of it from Minister Shaw, and I'm sure you'll be aware of much of it. But we have some sizable issues, and we're already, using the resources way quicker than they can be replenished on a global level. We are then pretty much wasting them. By the way we're creating and using and disposing of products, we're creating huge amounts of harmful greenhouse gas emissions, and we're impacting our biodiversity and degenerating our natural environment. But of course, there is a solution, a low carbon circular economy where waste and pollution and carbon are designed out. The products that we have now are kept in high value circulation and natural systems are regenerated. And that solution, we've demonstrated that there are the economic and environmental benefits. That was the results from a study we did a number of, 2 or 3 years ago on Auckland. So how are we going to sort of judge, how we're tracking and how do we know what the steps are to achieve that necessary transition? Well, in our latest report, which we'll send you a link to after this webinar, so you can sort of read the full document, we've identified that there are 6 key action points or leverage areas that need to be unlocked to enable this transition. I'll just briefly outline what they are. First of all, no surprises, we need to design for circular outcomes. 80% of the environmental impact is locked in at the design phase. We need to therefore think about how we design for circular outcomes in our products, in our processes, in the solutions. We need to then stimulate demand for more circular solutions. And there's really 2 aspects to that. One is to pull those solutions through via deliberate procurement decisions, but the other is to push them through by creating solutions that effectively outperform their linear counterpart. They're much more appealing, they've got greater functionality, ultimately they're more desirable. We need to increasingly adopt new business models that are inherently more circular, particularly ones that move us away from ownership to access, so we can make more efficient use of the resources we currently have in circulation. We need the right infrastructure to make all this happen, distribute materials, reprocessing, and they need to be accessible. We need to embed the appropriate new technology, whether it be, depending on the situation, AI, 3D printing, or electronic tracking of passports of materials as they move through the value chain to enable the circular economy to happen. And then also, as you're hearing Minister Shaw discuss, we need the right policy and legislation to both incentivize and enforce this change that we need. So, I mean, how are we doing? How is New Zealand doing? Despite the clear and undisputed need for a low carbon circular economy, we are simply not moving fast enough. If we carry on our current trajectory, we're simply not going to get to the place where we need to get. There are some early signs of progress. Just picking up on a demand side, we know that customers are increasingly demanding products that don't effectively end up in landfill. The study we did showed that 96% of the respondents wanted to purchase products that can be reused, repaired, or recycled. And we're also seeing large procurers starting to drive change with their procurement policies. As Minister Shaw said, we are seeing policy and legislation both coming through and being signalled that is having change, that is starting to drive change. Mandatory product stewardship, the banning of problematic materials. And we are seeing some, but still really with those progressive organisations, some business models coming through that are, inherently circular. And it's great that we're going to hear from 3 of those organisations very shortly. However, so where are we coming unstuck? And I'm really going to focus on this first leverage point, and it's basically businesses feel like they're almost trapped in this linear system. There's this locked-in syndrome, as of course linear systems and value chains have been optimized over the last 70 years, and so there's some effort required to break through in a transformational way that we need. We are seeing that in general there's perhaps too much focus on waste in itself, and looking to divert waste rather than looking at how that waste occurred in the first place, and then looking across the value chain to look at how it can be optimized, how that value can be increased. So that was really just a quick run through of some of the key findings that you can see in the report. In terms of what can businesses do now, the report, it points to a multiple number of businesses who are working in more circular ways and having success in that way. And it also provides 15 high-level opportunities for business. But I'll just focus, for the sake of time, on 2 of them. One is really building on that last point that I made, is going beyond that waste diversion, thinking about how did that waste material occur in the first place, and then looking across the value chain to see how can the circular economy lens start to add value to that material. How can it be kept in circulation for longer? How can that value be optimized via different models like reuse, remanufacturing, or repair? All those responding to all those signals that we see coming through from the customer. And the other opportunity is to use the approach that we're seeing many companies start to use with addressing those challenges we've got with plastic packaging, and use those as a template. And what we're seeing happening there is companies are starting to understand a baseline, understanding where the problematic materials are impacting in the system. They're setting bold targets. By 2025, packaging will be recyclable, reusable, or compostable in practice, crucially in practice. And they're looking across the value chain, so going past production, distribution, into usage and end of life, understanding what infrastructure is available, and then designing appropriately. That means looking at the raw materials that are being used. That means looking at using different business models, such as reuse. And although early days, we are seeing that change happening. So innovation is happening, and it's also a great example of how all those 6 leverage points are coming into play and starting to have an impact. So of course, what we like to do is encourage businesses to not just focus on the packaging, but use that approach to actually tackle their core products, what's actually inside the packaging.
Thank you very much, James. That's outstanding. I'll just ask you to stop the screen share so I can see my own mush. There I am. That's awesome. So that's a quick rundown of some of the report's findings. We're going to send you the link to that report in an email following this, and you can also grab it on our website, sustainable.org.nz. Please keep pumping. I've got some questions coming through. Keep putting the questions through. We're going to have a little panel discussion at the end of this with all the participants. So if you've got hot topics or questions you want to cover, now is a chance. That also includes those on Facebook who are taking part. Chuck a question into the chat there, and we'll see if we can get it passed across to us. So speaking of businesses that are working with us and doing the good stuff, we are now going to switch over to talk to some of those businesses to give you those practical examples of how it's done. And we were saying earlier in the practice that with beauty, beer and plumbing covered, we've got basically all of civilization done, so we're fixed. But no, they will have some examples of how small and medium-sized businesses of all kinds can operate, and some really, really good tips. So we'll pass you over to them now. First up, Emma Lewisham from Emma Lewisham Skincare. Emma.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Emma Lewisham. I'm the founder of Emma Lewisham Skincare. We are a scientifically proven natural skincare brand with a 100% circular designed beauty model, which we believe is the future of the beauty and is absolutely achievable. So to set the scene as to how the brand Emma Lewisham came about and why we are so passionate about leading the beauty industry towards the circular model began with my story. Prior to founding Emma Lewisham, I worked as one of the few female senior executives in a global Japanese technology company in a leadership role across strategy, sustainability, and marketing. And I've always been, as a person, curious and had a love for problem solving and asking questions. I think questions for me are where everything begins. The catalyst was after losing my mother to cancer when she was still very young, and it was a wake-up call for me to think about my own health and the way I was living. And I had a conversation with my doctor to discuss my general health, and it was actually my doctor who first inquired about what I was putting on my skin. And up until that point, I hadn't considered what I used as something that I needed to consider changing. I was using a product with an inactive ingredient called hydroquinone, and my doctor informed me that our skin is our largest organ, and that the ingredient was toxic and banned in many countries, and stopped using it. And it started me on a path to natural skincare. I was used to using high-tech luxury products, and when I went looking for the natural alternative with the same science, I couldn't find it. There was a compromise you had to make when using natural skincare. Also looking at the beauty industry critically, and with a fresh pair of eyes and the knowledge that I had in sustainability, I had this eureka moment where I could see how flawed the current beauty model was. The model is linear, as we're talking about, take, make, waste, and responsible for 120 billion units of beauty packaging produced every single year, which the majority is ending up in landfill oceans or being burnt due to the economics not being there to recycle it. So despite people thinking they're doing the right thing and putting beauty packaging in their recycling bin, it's not being recycled. It's also the single largest contributor of carbon emissions in beauty. And I could see that the whole model needed to be flipped on its head. If we created a circular model of beauty where we reused what already exists, then the whole beauty system would get cleaner and better, significantly less waste and carbon emissions. And both in seeing the gaps of products that I wanted that didn't exist, and seeing this enormous problem that we needed to solve inspired me and the team and put us on the path for what would be Emma Lewisham in 3 years' time. As much as we would hope that the foundation of sustainability our products are built on would be the key purchase driver for customers, ultimately we knew that first and foremostly our products had to work. I think this is the biggest challenge for brands wanting to leave the world in a better place. We must firstly create products that are equal to the status quo, so we have that ability to transform a model. Today, we do have natural products that are scientifically proven to outperform the most luxury brands on the market and have created a circular model of beauty. We're 19 months in, stocked in the most iconic and recognized department stores, brands globally, and on a mission to move the beauty industry to a circular one, which needs to be the future of beauty. So how did Lewisham create a 100% circular design beauty model? What does that look like? I'm going to take you through that now. So firstly, design of refillable products. We have created products which use as much recycled material as possible and design them all to be refillable. So the packaging can be used over and over again. The packaging is designed to be also very durable, so that it can be used over and over again and light. So an example of this is you buy one of our original products online or even in a retail store, and then ongoing you'd buy a refillable pod, which is made of 50% PCR. By doing so, we have created packaging that can be reused over and over again versus it going to waste. The next step change is taking ownership for this packaging once finished with. We have a program called the Lewisham Beauty Circle, where we take back for free all packaging end of life globally. And we make this accessible by offering free return shipping labels, which customers can easily add to their orders from emmalewisham.com, and taking away any extra steps like printing shipping labels, making it really easy. And then we have partnerships with our retailers as drop-off points. So for example, Lewisham is in David Jones across New Zealand and Australia, and we're currently rolling out a dedicated Lewisham Beauty Circle drop-off point in their stores. The material comes back to a central warehouse in the markets we operate, and we have a team that filters the material. Of all our material, 78% of it, if it's not too well loved or damaged, can go back to reuse. What we need to recycle, which we want to be as small as percentage as possible, we do so through Lewisham paying for it to be. The material then comes back to our warehouse in Auckland, where it is sterilised and goes back for redistribution. This is what creates a 100% circular designed beauty model. In moving the beauty industry to a circular mode of operating, it is estimated that the beauty industry could reduce carbon emissions by up to 70% while eliminating waste. We've been asked to share some of the challenges that we faced and the opportunities along the way. So I'd like to touch on some of these now. What we've created is fundamentally a foundation shift to how beauty operates, and none of this has existed and why we've come out and created it. So there has been a lot of challenges and problems to solve, but I do believe businesses that are not tackling these will get left behind. So when it came to creating refillable product packaging, there weren't options on the market for us in beauty, so we had to invest in these, and there was cost associated. But on the flip side, consumers genuinely want to buy refillable products, and we're seeing such an uplift in our sales in this area. So we don't see this as a cost, but more so an investment into our long-term success and value as a company. What we had to think about in design of these refillable product packaging is ensuring a whole lot of dynamics were met. One, ensuring that the efficacy of formulations the integrity of them were held and not compromised in any way. We had to look at how we could push for as much recycled material to be used as possible, which there was challenges with. The material needed to be highly durable, so it could be used again. It needed to be sterilized, so it'd be able to withstand extreme temperature. Also, we had to consider the weight of the material because it would be returned to us. So there would be emissions and transportation. So there was a lot of thought, a lot of trial and error in developing this packaging. And I think my advice would be to be really clear from the outset on the attributes before you start to design what your product packaging needs to be. When it came to getting back material back from customers so that we could keep it in circulation and reuse it, we set up the Lewisham Beauty Circle, and the focus was how do we create a seamless process and make returning material as easy as possible for customers and with as low of carbon footprint as possible as well. So this is where we add a free return shipping label to carts in New Zealand and Australia, UK and USA, so the main markets that we operate in. And to ensure for the offshore markets, so Australia, UK and USA, that we weren't air freighting back all of this material, we had to set up central warehouses in these markets for material to be sent back to. We then wait until we have bulk stock to return this material to New Zealand by sea freight and only ship back to New Zealand when there is space and capacity that would otherwise be wasted on ships. There was also a lot of thought that had to go into sterilisation of material and what temperatures had to be used, the actual steps that needed to take place to ensure that we were putting beauty packaging back into circulation that was safe. Another challenge of a circular model is very much that you can design one, but you need your customers to engage and participate in it. So really educating them on why it's important. And for us, educating customers that currently their beauty packaging is going to landfill oceans or being burnt. So we require them to send it back to us. And so there's a really big point here about communication and education and marketing. And so we've really pushed to make our communications clear, visible, and ongoing. The business model is one that we will have to continue to work hard at and improve on and engage customers in on. So although we have set it up, in no means is it finished or completed. I strongly believe that collaboration must underpin the transition to a circular economy. So if you have any questions or would like more detail around any of our processes, it would be an absolute pleasure to share. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. Amazing to see the full system in play there. A combination of kind of the high level philosophy and the detail, you know, that's really cool. Excellent. And next we'll have Alan Sutcliffe from Solo Plastics. Company's taken over just relatively recent last few years and is transforming to the circular economy model. So whereas Emma's set hers up from scratch, Alan's going in and re-engineering. Alan, over to you.
Thanks, Andy. Kia kato. My name's Alan Sutcliffe. I run a company called Solo Plastics, as Andy said. We're kind of the opposite end of the spectrum to what you just heard from Emma. We're a B2B entity. We're a mature business. We've been around since the mid-80s. And we make plastic pipes and pipe fittings for the water and wastewater infrastructure of New Zealand. We use a type 2 plastic, which is polyethylene. We don't use any of the soft plastics. And the business was purchased about 2 years ago, which is when I joined. And I have a deep passion for sustainability. And so when I started, I really wanted to look at how we could almost use the business as an experiment to see what happens if you transition a SME from a business that focuses on profit to a business that focuses on doing good. And so we make a very boring product, you could say. We make black tubes of air that get manufactured, put in the ground, and you don't see them again for 100 years. So it's quite difficult to differentiate yourself from the competition. So we said, you know, as part of this sustainable journey, how can we look at creating a unique selling point for us, and how equally can I sell this idea of to the board of you know, that if we run a business that's excuse me, purpose-led, it doesn't actually have to compete with creating shareholder value. So we threw out all the traditional KPIs and measurements and targets that typical manufacturing companies run their businesses by, and we said, okay, if we focus the whole business around some of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, how would that look? And so one of the key ones that really resonates with us around on the goals is responsible consumption and production. And within that, there's a very core element of focusing on recycling. So as a business, we already recycle our own manufacturing waste, and we thought, well, okay, in terms of that, we're meeting those goals already. I'll just share my screen so that you can see. So this is our sort of core ethics on recycling and what we do as a business, and hopefully it'll give you a brief idea of how we manufacture. So we design a product and we then manufacture it, we install it. The product itself will last on average at least 100 years. We can then dig that product up. We can then re-chip that product into pellets, and those pellets can then be reused to design another pipe or another plastic product, a waste paper basket or a child seat or whatever you want to do with it. So it's a very stable and unique product that it suits itself really well to recycling and the circular economy. So we thought, well, this is fantastic. We can meet these goals and we can tick this box. But in actual fact, and in response to the earlier comment about going beyond the sort of waste diversion what else can we do to try and enhance our circular economy goals? So we started having conversations with recycling companies and saying, look, we use a type 2 plastic. Do you guys have type 2 plastics, and what do you do with it? And a lot of the recyclers said, well, in actual fact, we export a lot of the type 2 waste to other countries that use it. And what we can't export, we just put into landfill. And so we did a bit of research, and we found out that milk bottles are a type 2 quality made product, and that countries like Malaysia and Indonesia buy thousands and thousands of tons from New Zealand each year to recycle. And at the same time, we're importing brand new resin from abroad and exporting post-consumer resin, which is essentially the same product. So we started doing some experiments with milk bottles, and we found out that the quality of a waste 2-litre milk bottle is pretty much exactly the same as a virgin resin product that we're buying. So we said, okay, this is interesting. Why don't we try and make pipes out of milk bottles? And we've run trials, and we've purchased some new equipment to allow us to extrude these chipped milk bottles. And we found that it actually makes a product that is almost identical to making the product from a virgin material. So our circular economy models is kind of shifted now. So it's gone from one where we just look at our own waste to one now where we're recycling other people's waste. So we've come up with this new product called EcoPipe, and this is our circular economy model of that. We take the milk bottles from the recycling companies who've already washed them and chipped them. We turn them into pellets, and then we put them into a product that we can then use for areas like the farming industry and for the forestry industry, areas where we're governed by legislation around how much recycled material we can use on products where there's a structural demand. And so at the moment, we can't use 100% recycled materials for those, but on other applications where the structure is not as critical, then we're pushing this new product. So, and just to give you a bit of perspective on that, so a 6-meter pipe that is 800 millimeters in diameter, we can install about 3,000 2-litre milk bottles into that product. So we're taking that waste out of the economy, we're turning it into something new. And so now we're really sort of getting to the point of a circular economy approach. We're stopping these materials going to waste, we're repurposing them into something new. And I should really point out that you don't make a lot of money off what you're doing. You shouldn't really focus on how much profit you can generate from trying to run a circular economy business, but it does meet our goals. It does mean that we're importing less. It does set us apart from the competition. So we've created a unique selling point, which is what we discussed. And it does indirectly help us win contracts with our customers who are looking to work with their suppliers who've got similar-minded views to match their own sustainable goals.
Fantastic. Thank you, Alan. Outstanding. And I love the thinking like outside of your own stream. Like, you know, you wouldn't sit there normally in a pipe company and go, you know what, those milk bottles look a bit interesting. Let's have a go at that. And that's that collaboration that we need across all the systems. I'll move swiftly on because we're pushed for time, but we're doing well. I'm going to go over to Donald Shepherd of Citizen. Donald.
Hi, everyone. I'm just going to try and share my screen. Is that coming up for people?
Yeah, just need to go full screen on your image. That's the one.
Right. Okay, so I'll move pretty quickly. So to quickly introduce ourselves, Citizen, we're a new organization, and we actually set up and launched our first products in the middle of COVID, July last year. And our whole purpose of our organization is to really take focus and rescue and upcycle what we call as perfectly edible food that's currently going either into waste streams or into stock feed. So we're about upcycling and repurposing in as lower impact way as possible. And to give you a sort of a little bit of a flavor of how big this challenge is globally, 1/3 of the food that we produce is currently going to waste, which is frightening. And it actually has very negative impacts in terms of wasted resources from fuel and water and deforestation, but also when it's ending up in landfill, it actually equates to being the 3rd largest country in greenhouse gas emissions. So this is a real big challenge for us. And here in New Zealand at Aotearoa, our #1 most wasted product is actually bread. And so for Citizen, this was our starting point. We focused where there is an opportunity. Together within our households, we actually put 29 million loaves of bread into landfill every year. But actually what we're looking to work with, and we're working with people like Goodman Fielder and Foodstuffs, it's actually working within the system in terms of what bread is made and actually never makes our homes from that production process. And I think what we actually started from was we looked back to look forward, and the origins of beer come from actually upcycling bread and fermenting bread and creating beer. But as we wanted to take a circular approach, we knew bread into beer was one step forward. And as the others have talked about, we actually went and we collaborated with people at Callaghan Innovation and Food Bowl, and we wanted to take our own resources, our spent grains, and how could we upcycle and repurpose that back into a product that we could actually use for baking bread. So here's a quick little look. We collect bread that's unsold in terms of in the plastic bags. We turn that into croutons on the right-hand side, and we actually replace 25% of the malted barley in a standard brew with our rescued bread. So A, we're reducing food going to waste, and B, we're actually reducing primary ingredients which are intensively grown and high input going into our system. Then we produce beer. And as Emma talked about, quality, and in our case, taste is king, because you can have a good story, but it's got to be a tasty product. At the end of our brewing process, we then collect our spent grains. And this is the bit that we've worked out with our friends at Food Bowl and Callaghan. We take a hot, wet product, we press it, dry it, mill it, turn it into a flour. So we've got a stable product that has a shelf life. And then we hand that to our friends at Wild Wheat to bake a yummy multi-sourdough. And I think this is where we work in terms of our whole concept is we have a collective mindset, and we actually work with people and organizations that share our values and actually are very good at what they're doing. So our brewing partner is Sawmill Brewery up at Matakana. And the reason why we work with them, good people, award-winning, but most importantly, they're the only B Corp brewery in New Zealand. And Andrew is known as an artisan baker who doesn't use preservatives or additives, and therefore is really focused on the quality of the product as well as reducing waste. So we have 4 beers at the moment. We have bread, and it's a starting point for us. As an organization, we will grow into other areas of food that are currently going to waste. And the journey continues, and we're only at the starting point. So far, we've upcycled 140,000 slices of bread. We've actually also taken a responsibility for those plastic bags that we receive the bread in. And we work with people like Jerome at Future Post, and he upcycles those bread bags into plastic posts. So we're really mindful that we want to reduce our impact, not just reduce food waste. Then we've been really fortunate to work with Toitu, and as a small organization, they've just launched a tool to pilot with them, and it's a set of tools and calculation methods for us to actually calculate our organizational carbon footprint, and then we've offset it with Toitu. So it's affordable and accessible if you're new and small on this journey. But going back to why we started, and it's an interesting time in this country, which a number of people have talked about, but Kiwis are interested. They are aware of climate change being a real thing. They're looking for organizations and brands and businesses to act in a sustainable way, and they're also willing to invest in it. So it doesn't have to be the cheapest product. As long as we've got a good story and a good quality, we think it's really important. However, convenience is king. And that's where, by simply buying a loaf of bread or enjoying a can of beer, we're helping those people that are a little bit skeptical about this. It's making it easy and helpful for them to make a good choice. And this is all part of where we are focused on food. New Zealanders know they need to change their dietary habits to have a positive impact on the environment. But what we focus on is it's an inspiring story. We are not focused on telling them we are bad for wasting food. We're actually saying, here's a good and tasty and alternative choice. So we kind of think of it as a new kind of food revolution. And collaboration has been already spoken about. And I talked about Foodstuffs being a critical partner in Goodman Fielder as well. And we talk about area of influence as well as area of control. And within Foodstuffs, they have food challenges in terms of which they're actively working on, but together we actually have a bigger sphere of influence. And that's where collaboration is really important. And we talked about the consumer journey. Where are they at on this? And Foodstuffs and Otago University ran some research with their consumers in August 2020, and only 10% of consumers knew what upcycled food was. However, when explained, over 81% were actually willing and interested in. So that's a really fertile space. And the great news, we've been really successful in driving that message, helping to, like Emma talked about, there's a journey here for us all to take our consumers on. And we've actually risen that 10% awareness now to 43% of people are aware of upcycled food and open to it. But again, it has to taste good. It's not good enough just to have a good story. And so this is a journey. We work as a collective, and we're focusing so far on bread, but we've got other products that come along as well. So that's us, that's who Citizen is all about.
Fantastic, Donald. It's incredible, and I can vouch for the beer. It's been getting me through lockdown. It's extremely tasty, and I personally, I think that could be a political statement: bread into beer into bread. That we could just run our whole society on that, as far as I'm concerned.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. We're getting an absolute ton of questions in, and I'm mindful that we're over time, and I don't like to take people's lunch breaks away from them if I can help it. Speaking of bread, so one of the things we will do is, given the amount of interest we've had come through on the chat and the Q&A, we've got questions piling in on both sides, is we'll attempt to collate those, and we'll come back to you, either even with another session, we'll see, or some feedback onto your email to get those questions answered for you. What we really want to do is I do want to bring James Griffin back just briefly before we part, just to talk a little bit more about the last stages and the next stages of Go Circular 2025 and how you can get involved. James.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's great to hear those pioneering examples and all the interaction in the chat there. But so the first major resource of Go Circular 2025 will be a business-to-business directory, which is going to enable you to find the products and services to help you go circular. We know no businesses as we've been hearing are able to make this transition alone. So we'll be able to profile and connect you to the products, services, suppliers that can enable that shift. The other thing is that we know in some cases those solutions might not be available yet. So part of this directory will be a challenge hub where you can put your needs forward with the idea of stimulating that local demand. So really what we'd like you to do is, in the link that we'll send you after the webinar to download the report, is to also, if you have a circular solution, please register your interest there. And also, if you're looking for a circular solution, please let us know, and that will help us to start to shape this directory. Lots of other activity happening throughout the year, and we'll be keeping you updated on all that activity.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, James. We're overwhelmed by the chat. I love the fact you're answering each other's questions as well. That's great. It's like an absolute kind of town square in there. We will go through that when we finish the session and pull out the gold and answer the questions as far as we can. It just remains for me to say thanks very much to our speakers, Emma, Alan and Donald, all doing awesome work out there. Thank you to our partners, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise, Ministry for the Environment, Waste Management and Āmiomio Aotearoa. We will be working for them going forward, and you'll see more stuff coming out from us. Do go onto our website, sustainable.org.nz, for more details, but we will be hitting up your inbox with more information as well. The next SBN event online is the Packaging Innovation Webinar on the 7th of October. Obviously, a lot of overlap with what we're talking about today, part of that circular economy drive. Get on there. It's going to be as busy as this one. Thanks again. I'll just close with a karakia, and please have a fantastic and safe day. Unuhia, unuhia, unuhia ki te uru tapu nui, ki wātea, ki māmā te nākau, te tinana, te wairua, ki te ara tangata. Koe ora rongo whakairehiri ake kinge runga. Kia tina, tina, hui e, tai ki e.